Welcome to the Daily Word. I'm Pastor Jeremiah. We'll be in Matthew 5 today. In particular, we're going to look at verses 21 to 26. We'll call it the heart of murder. Verse 21, Jesus is speaking. This is the Sermon on the Mount. He says, "You have heard that it was said to those of old, 'You shall not murder, and whoever murders will be liable to judgment.'" Well, what he's saying is this: you have heard, meaning the rabbis teach this way. Rabbinic teaching is that if you murder, you're liable for judgment. That word judgment speaks of the civil courts. In other words, they were saying, hey, listen, you don't need to murder. If you do, you're liable to be arrested and pay civil penalty, whatever that would be. Well, they were right in that sense. We know that the Old Testament forbids murder. Exodus 20 does that. So the rabbis were teaching correctly in that they were recognizing that there was a punishment for murder. But what Jesus does is exposes that they don't go far enough, rather. They stop too short. And basically they're saying, don't commit murder because you'll get in trouble. Well, Jesus says, no. It's much deeper than that. And you're far guiltier than you think you are, and you're more self-righteous than you think you are. So he unveils three dimensions of really this heart of murder, which is anger. Because they thought, just don't murder, you're okay. But Jesus says, no, it's about the heart, and the heart of murder is anger. So he says there are three dimensions that they need to understand. There's an inward, an upward, and an outward dimension. Well, this inward dimension is verses 21 to 22. And in essence, he gives three illustrations to show that they're far guiltier than they realize. Verse 21, or rather 22, "But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment." The first illustration is the sin of anger towards someone else. This looks like bitterness, resentment. So if you're bitter, if you're resentful, if you have a grudge against someone, you committed this sin. Illustration number 2, whoever insults his brother will be liable to the council. And what that means is, if you say nasty things about the other person, if you insult them, slander them, then you're also guilty. Illustration number 3, whoever says you fool will be liable to the hell of fire. Well, here he's saying the sin of cursing someone to hell. Basically, he says if you do any one of these three, you have anger, you slander them, you curse them, deeper and more intense forms of this anger, then he says you're guilty of murder. So this inward dimension is far more indicting of them than they even realized. But he says that's not it. There's an upward dimension. And this relates to their relationship with God because it affects worship. Now this is verses 23 and 24. Verse 23, "So if you're offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother and then come and offer your gift." What Jesus is saying is anger ruins worship. He says if you go to present your offering to God, to present this act of worship, and you realize that someone else is mad at you, then you've got to go fix it. You can't worship God while you're at odds with other people. That's pretty much what Jesus is saying. So if you have a relationship that's broken and been damaged because of anger, whether your anger at them or their anger towards you, Jesus says you've got to stop. Before you complete your worship, you've got to stop and fix it, which is significant. Because he's saying, go seek restoration, be reconciled, seek forgiveness, seek repentance and restoration. Because your worship to God is worthless if you do it with anger in your heart towards somebody else, or if they have anger towards you because of what you've done. There's a final dimension here. It's the outward dimension. And we already see that, but this is how it affects others. How anger not only affects yourself and your relationship with God, through worship, but also with others. Look at verses 25 and 26. "Come to terms quickly with your accuser while you are going with him to court, lest your accuser hand you over to the judge, and the judge to the guard, and you be put in prison. Truly I say to you, you will never get out until you have paid the last penny. Well, the implication here and what Jesus is saying is you need to make it right with others, and you need to do it quickly. And he draws upon an illustration of, in his time, of if you wronged someone and then they're going to court and then you'd be arrested and you'd have to make up for the wrong you did through payment. And if you didn't come to terms with your accuser quickly enough, you'd end up getting thrown in jail and it would be impossible for you to pay them back. So what he says is, make it right quickly. And the ultimate implication is, make it right before God intervenes, before God comes down to judge. And so Jesus is saying, murder is all about anger, and anger is so much deeper than the Jews, especially the hypocritical Jews, realize. There is an inward dimension, an upward dimension, and an outward dimension. And again, the whole idea of what he's saying is, you can't do it on your own. You're more guilty than you think. You're more self-righteous than you think. You need the grace of God through the person of Jesus Christ.